Did you know there was an angel of media? I didn't. At least not until I was browsing in a bookshop recently, because that's the best kind of browsing, proper browsing. Because let's face it, online browsing isn't browsing, it's targeted surveillance with nicer fonts. Anyway, I came across a book, this book, called A Dictionary of Angels. And because I'm trying to maintain my grip on reality in the most sensible way possible, I paid money for a 1960s index of angels and took it home. It's by Gustav Davidson. The full title is A Dictionary of Angels, including the Fallen Angels, which feels like the kind of administrative optimism that ends in a filing cabinet fire. It's one of those reference books that entirely refuses to be embarrassed by its subject matter. Angels in this book are not metaphors or religious mood lighting, not the soft focus winged wallpaper of funerals and greetings cards, but actual entities with names, duties, ranks and affiliations, a complete celestial civil service, correctly indexed on paper no less. And because it's a dictionary, you can flip through it like a Victorian naturalist riffling through drawers of beetles. There's one in charge of memory, there's one who runs Mercury, another who handles mercy, and so on. No grand theology, no sermon, just administration. The universe, according to Davidson's sources, is bureaucracy, but with feathers. And then I hit on one entry that stopped me. It reads, "The angel of Media, the unnamed tutelary angel of the ancient land of Media, who became corrupted through national bias." That line's been stuck in my head ever since, like an earache you can't quite fix. First, a quick point of orientation. Media here doesn't mean newspapers, television, TikTok, or the BBC announcing impartiality while scheduling 3 more panel shows. Media was once a real place, and properly ancient, a kingdom in what is now northwestern Iran, associated with the Medes, briefly powerful and then folded into the Persian Empire. In the older Jewish and Near Eastern traditions that Davidson draws from, nations had guardian angels, patron angels, national representatives before God. Ambassadors without the sleek motorcade, but with trumpets. So the angel of media is not the angel of journalism. It's the angel assigned to a country, incidentally, that ceased to exist a few thousand years ago. Which raises a reasonable administrative question. Do angels get reassigned? Is there a celestial redeployment process, a divine HR department, a transfer request in triplicate? I've got no idea. But that's not the bit that interests me the most. What interests me is the shape of the role. Because even though our modern word media does not come from that place name, it comes from the Latin medium, the middle thing, the in-between, the go-between, the place where transmission happens. So different etymologies, yes, but conceptually they end up loitering in the same doorway. A messenger, an intermediary who is supposed to carry rather than become. And this one, we're told, was corrupted through national bias. Not lust, not greed, not pride, none of the enjoyable sins that get decent publicity, but bias, partiality, alignment, the slow drift from representing something to becoming its echo, its advocate, its mouthpiece. Sound familiar? That's such an eerily modern failure, it almost sounds like a line from a media regulator's report, which is precisely why it caught me. Corrupted through national bias. That phrasing is doing an extraordinary amount of work for 4 words. It suggests not melodramatic wickedness, but a collapse of judgment. Mediation compromised by identity. In plainer terms, the angel took sides. Davidson also notes that the angel of media mounted 52 rungs of Jacob's ladder, which is all the explanation you get when it comes to angel administration. Still, it's a marvellous detail because it gives you an image you can't quite shake. The angel climbing rung after rung higher and higher, closer to whatever counts as authority in this cosmology, and then eventually falling. In these systems, height matters, influence is vertical, proximity to the divine is the ultimate access all areas pass. Climbing isn't just success, it's legitimacy. So a fall is not merely humiliation, it's a demotion from the truth. That shape feels familiar, not necessarily the ladder, although our world is full of ladders and the occasional rope bridge made entirely from LinkedIn posts. I mean the moral arc. You rise, you are rewarded, the rise begins to feel deserved, then it begins to feel natural, then it begins to feel inevitable. And somewhere up there, you forget what your actual job was. You were supposed to carry messages, instead you start to write them. For me, one of the most telling parts of the entry is this: the angel is unnamed. Plenty of angels in Davidson's books have names, sometimes several, names that vary across traditions, languages, texts, grimoires, names that can be invoked, remembered or argued over. This one doesn't get that courtesy. It's described only by function and place, the angel of media. And then the failure, corrupted through national bias. It's as if the angel is no longer worth invoking, not a stable identity, but a cautionary label. Not an angel you call on, but one you cite when things go wrong. And now I'm going to do the thing one is not supposed to do in polite intellectual company. I'm going to connect two words that are not actually related, and then behave as though destiny arranged the whole thing. Because this brings me inevitably to the word we now use, media. If you say the media, you can practically watch people's pupils dilate. It's one of those phrases that functions like a moral flare. The left say it with a heavy sigh, the right spits it out through clenched teeth. Everyone assumes everyone else is being manipulated, and nobody quite believes anyone is simply telling the truth. And, if you work in media, you're often trained to maintain a straight face while using the words objectivity, balance and impartiality, as if these were stable states of being rather than precarious performances carried out under pressure. The promise is always the same. We stand between you and the world. We mediate, we transmit, we help you understand. The trouble is that impartiality and balance now often function less as ethics and more like customer service language. They sound moral, but they behave like branding. They mean, we will be fair only in the way our people recognise as fair. Not fair in some abstract God's eye sense, but fair in the way that doesn't make our audience feel betrayed. Every outlet has its own house version of impartiality, tuned to the tolerances of people paying attention and paying for it. Your audience wants to feel reasonable, so you sound reasonable. They want to feel besieged, so you sound alarmed. They want to feel morally superior, so you speak in that brisk tone of enlightened disappointment. They want permission to be angry, so you provide it, carefully, with just enough plausible deniability to keep the sponsors from fainting. Impartiality is not neutral, it's tailored. It is the impartiality your audience will tolerate. And balance is often worse, because balance sounds mechanical, measured, rational, like reality could be weighed on a kitchen scale. But balance between what exactly? Two parties? Two tribes? Two feelings? Two levels of evidence? 2 degrees of sanity or insanity in some cases? In practice, it's often theatre. If you cannot provide genuine neutrality, you can still provide the performance of fairness. 2 voices, 2 sound bites, 2 outrages. It's symmetry as a substitute for truth. This is how you end up with one side bringing a spreadsheet and the other bringing a conspiracy, and the presenter nodding gravely at both, as if the job is not to tell you what is true, but to make sure everyone feels included. One person says it's daytime, the other says it's midnight. The presenter nods as if both claims deserve equal lighting, and you have to go outside to check. And then you look at what the system really rewards: speed, outrage, simplification, certainty, and continual production. There's no time built into the business model for contemplation, reflection, doubt, or the slow, unfashionable, and unforgivable act of admitting you might be wrong. Mediation requires delay. The system sells velocity. And this ruins the romance a bit, which is why people dislike saying it out loud. but true impartiality probably can't exist in a clean angelic way that the word suggests. We are, after all, embodied, situated creatures with histories, blind spots, loyalties, resentment and rent. Nobody sees from nowhere. But there's a difference between saying impartiality is impossible, so we should manage our biases honestly, and saying impartiality is impossible, so we will sell you a bias that feels like impartiality. That second one is what the market encourages, because it scales. It gives the audience the thing they are actually paying for, which is recognition. That little warm feeling of, yes, that's what I already thought, but now it has better lighting and a logo. So what happens? The intermediary becomes a participant, the carrier becomes a player, the channel develops a personality and then monetizes it. The go-between becomes a tribe, and once you belong to a tribe, you start treating the world as if it exists to confirm your tribe's story. That is national bias updated for an age of virtual nations. And it's worth noticing that bias is not merely a moral flaw, it's a psychological comfort. Bias gives you a home, it tells you who you are, it also tells you who to hate, it grants you certainty. It offers that little sugar hit of knowing who is right and who is contemptible. It turns complexity into plot, which is why it spreads so easily. The ancient angel fell because it couldn't keep the necessary distance from the nation it served. It became entangled, aligned, compromised by loyalty. And modern media often fails in a similar way. It fails not through loyalty to a nation, but through loyalty to an audience, a demographic, a market segment, an algorithmic mood. The incentives are commercial as much as they're ideological, so perhaps national bias now sounds a bit quaint. What we really have is engagement bias, attention bias, platform bias, the bias of whatever keeps the lights on, but the moral shape remains the same. Mediation collapses when the mediator cannot bear the loneliness of the middle, because the middle is an exposed place. The middle gets shot at from both sides. The middle is accused of cowardice. The middle is accused of enabling harm. The middle is accused of secretly serving the other side. So the middle requires a particular kind of nerve and a particular kind of humility. It also requires time, and time in the current system is treated as a luxury good. So the angel of media becomes useful, not as a mystical fact, but as a way of describing a structural problem. The intermediary cannot pretend innocence. To stand between things is not to be free of responsibility. It's to carry responsibility differently. And this is the bit we don't much like admitting. There's no such thing as just passing it on. Every act of transmission is a choice. What you include, what you omit, where you begin, where you end, what you frame as significant, what you bury, what you repeat, and what you allow to be forgotten. The mediator shapes the world simply by deciding which parts of it get to travel. Then add incentives: money, status, access, ideology, fear, career calculation, and the selection becomes even less neutral, even if the people involved aren't white cat stroking villains. Most corruption is banal. It's proximity, it's career structure, it's the small internal compromise you stop noticing because it keeps being rewarded. 52 rungs is a long climb. That's why the Davidson entry feels so sharp. It names the failure without melodrama. It does not say the angel became wicked, it says it became biased, which is to say it stopped being able to mediate fairly. Simple warning: you cannot do this job if you cannot resist belonging. And the final sting is that the angel is unnamed, which suggests that the ultimate punishment isn't hellfire, but irrelevance. You don't get remembered as a figure with a story. You get remembered as a mistake attached to a function. And in a way, that's exactly the fate modern media fears most. Not criticism, not outrage, not collapse, but irrelevance. Being bypassed, being treated as noise, being replaced by direct feeds, direct claims, direct performances of certainty, however delusional. The irony is that the chase for relevance is one of the things that destroys mediation. You can almost watch it happening in real time. To survive, media adopts the tactics of what threatens it. It becomes faster, louder, more performative, more aligned. It climbs the ladder and then acts surprised when nobody trusts it. And it's not just the media anymore in that old newsroom sense. It is everyone with a camera, a platform, a grievance, and a little audience-shaped hole in their chest. The intermediary role has been franchised. We're all minor angels of media now, climbing whatever ladder the algorithm puts in front of us. So, here I am on YouTube, and I don't have a neat solution to offer, partly because I don't trust neat solutions. The point isn't to announce a new code of ethics and then carry on as before. The point is to recognise the cost of mediation and why it fails when it refuses to pay that cost. The angel of media fell because it mistook a role for a side. That's not a problem we've solved. That's a problem we've scaled.